the Indiana Pacers, they fired Nate McMillan. So listen to this. They have fired Coach Nate McMillan after his team was swept for the first round in the playoffs against the Miami Heat. But earlier in the month, the Pacers, we worked this contract by adding a team option for next season. But was this the best decision for the Indiana Pacers to do?
No, I don't believe so. And I think the Indiana Pacers, they completely screwed over Nate McMillan, Clarence. And first thing I want to say, you just mentioned it a little bit. 2 weeks ago, they gave him a 1-year extension. And then 2 weeks later, you fire him? That makes no sense. It sounds like you are all over the place as far as your decision making. I'm talking about General Manager Kevin Pritchard. It sounds like you're not really sure about what you want to do with your franchise moving forward. You just gave Nate McMillan an extra year. So why did you fire him 2 years later? In 4 seasons as head coach of the Pacers, Nate McMillan went 183 and 136. And each of those 4 seasons, he led his team to the playoffs, Clarence. I understand he's been swept out of the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 seasons. And his playoff record isn't impressive. But he's gotten them to the playoffs with mid-level talent. The best player on the Indiana Pacers over the last few years has been Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo is not to be confused with a superstar like a Kawhi Leonard, like a LeBron James, like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, like a Kevin Durant. He's a star player at best. That's him at his maximal potential. So I think that Nate McMillan got a raw deal because he coached mid-level talent and got them to the postseason every year he's been the coach of the Indiana Pacers. I feel like when you talk about the Indiana Pacers as a franchise, they're not the kind of franchise that free agents are going to go play for. No one wants to go to Indiana and play for the Indiana Pacers. They have to build through the draft and try to make trades to bring talent to their roster. And I don't think Kevin Pritchard has done that as a general manager for that team. I think this year, Victor Oladipo, he wasn't 100%, and they got to the playoffs. They played this year without Sabonis. Under these circumstances, you're not going to beat a Jimmy Butler-led Miami Heat team. Like, I know I picked the Heat in 7 games, Clarence, over the Pacers, but as I watched that series, bro, the Miami Heat were by far the better team. Come on now. They were by far the better team. And I think the fact that Nate McMillan had them in that position competing in the playoffs shows you what kind of coach he is. When I talk about the best coaches in the NBA, I'm thinking about Brad Stevens. I'm thinking about Nick Nurse, who we're going to talk about here in a minute when we preview the Celtics and Raptors series. I'm thinking about Greg Popovich. You know, I'm thinking about coaches like that, Doc Rivers. I don't think Nate McMillan deserves to be in that conversation, but I do think Nate McMillan is a coach a tier below that. And I think he got a raw deal here by the end of the Pacers, considering him leading this mid-level talented team to the playoffs every single season since he's been the head coach. I think he got a raw deal here, and he was completely screwed over.
Trey, here to bust the bubble, man. And I'm going to tell you why this was the best decision for the Indiana Pacers to do. Let me tell you why. Because you just mentioned it. His playoff record with this team is horrible. 3-16 overall. Second, when they went into this matchup against the Miami Heat, they already lost 4 straight. Let me see. I did 4 straight playoffs appearance, 4 straight playoff games, and it extended it to I think 9 straight playoff games. That's a record now. That's a record, a franchise record of how many playoff losses games they had consistently. And like you said, they've been swept the last 2 years. So I think it was a change that it was needed to come. Yes, they had mid-level talent, but that talent was enough for you to get into the playoff. They had an actually nice setup. Sabonis was coming up. Miles Turner has been there holding down the paint. Oladipo, he was injured, but he was coming back. And then you got a special point guard, Malcolm Brogdon, that can balance out the team well. And I think, believe it or not, I thought this game was going to 7 games. I thought the Pacers matched up well with the Miami Heat, but the Miami Heat, they wanted it more. And don't get me wrong, Nate McMillan was 183 again, 136. He was third. He got the third wins most in the Indiana Pacers. Only in front coaches that's in front of him was Larry Brown and Frank Vogel, the Los Angeles Lakers coach. But he developed defense for this team, which they was a good defender team, but he couldn't get them over the hump. And when you can't get them over the hump, it's gonna be time to move on. Like, come on, the records speak for itself, though, Trey. 9 straight playoff losses, straight game. They win no playoff games in a long time. They've been swept the first 2 years.
So my question, I got a question for you. Yeah. We always talk about when these coaches get fired, why they got fired and why the organization made the decision that they made. Now, the question is going to be, who are you going to bring in to replace Nate McMillan? You have to bring in an upgrade at the head coach's spot, right? Who are you going to bring in? What coach would you suggest the Indiana Pacers go after to coach this team moving forward?
Believe it or not, I think they should go after. It's a few candidates I should think they should go after. I think they should go after Tyronn Lue, Brett Brown. It's another coach. It's another coach that's out there. David Fitzdale, Jason Kidd. I mean, you should look at these coaches that fit their culture. And they did state that they're looking for program builders. They're looking for coaches and players that are program builders, people that can build off this culture and turn it into championship contenders. They want to have a winning culture, Trey. And I think they need a coach that's used to winning, help build that culture. And Tyronn Lue, Jason Kidd, David Fitzdale, them guys right there are good, noticeable coaches. Even Brett Brown, regardless his 7th season in Philly, it didn't end out well, but the culture he brought to Philly was amazing, and he helped change them around, turned them into Scrubs back to playoff team. I think you need to bring in a coach that's definitely got a winning culture behind himself in order to start from there. But they're definitely looking for program builders.
I got one better for you. I got a former player that played in that organization with the Indiana Pacers who they should bring in. I suggest they bring in Mark Jackson. Yes, I think Mark Jackson should be a head coach in the NBA, Clarence. When he was head coach of the Golden State Warriors, before they became a dynasty, he had a record of 121 and 109, which means he won 52% of his games. And he led the Golden State Warriors to the postseason during his tenure as head coach. I think Mark Jackson is the kind of coach that can change your culture in Indiana. I think that's the kind of, I've been to Indiana. I've went to Pacers games and I've, stayed in Indiana for, a couple of days when I was going up there for a job opportunity. And it's a hard-nosed town. They go to work every day and they work hard. It's a hard-working town and they take their sports very serious up there. And I think you need a coach that can change the culture like a Mark Jackson. And I think bringing in Mark Jackson, him having that familiarity with the organization will help get back to the postseason and possibly win a playoff series here or there. But I just think overall, when you look at who they've lost to in the playoffs, one year they lost to LeBron James. You're not beating LeBron in the playoffs if you're the Indiana Pacers. It's just not going to happen. They ain't even have Paul George. No, wait a minute. They might have did have Paul George. They did. That might have been his last year in Indiana. But even before that, they had Paul George with David West, and they had Roy Hibbert, and they had Lance Stevenson. Those teams couldn't beat LeBron James Miami Heat teams. So, I just look at Nate McMillan, and during his tenure, they lost this year to a Miami Heat team led by Jimmy Butler. If the Philadelphia 76ers still had Jimmy Butler, Clarence, it's a possibility Brett Brown still has his job in that series with the Celtics might still be going on. I don't think the Celtics sweep the Sixers out of the playoffs if they still had Jimmy Butler. Therefore, that shows you what kind of player Jimmy Butler is. That Miami team, we're going to talk about them here in a minute. They got a solid squad. Right, yeah. But I'm saying that's what I'm saying. That's why I feel like Nate McMillan got a raw deal, because I feel like what he was going up against was too much. Now, maybe you can make the argument he shouldn't have gotten Sweat. I understand that argument. I just think when you combine the fact that he's coached mid-level talent and superstars are not signing to play in Indiana, I think Nate McMillan was the kind of coach that you can build a winning team with and can get that team to their next destination, which that means second round playoffs or Eastern Conference Finals appearance.
But at the same time, though, mid-level talent, they thought Victor Oladipo was going to be something special. And he is. He's a nice, special guy. But they expected him to be the face of the Pacers. Like, they ain't had no face of the Pacers since, what, Jermaine O'Neal days and Reggie Miller? They need program builders. They need people that wants to win and change the program around. And I think if you don't have those type of guys in your building, then you're gonna have less success in the NBA. And you're gonna keep getting sweat because you don't have them program builders to build out for them and win with. But for this Pacer team, though, they have a nice setup. I like their setup. The bench play wasn't that good, but they had enough pieces to get them through in the playoffs. And I think for Nate McMillan, at times he was out coached, and you've seen the stress in his face that his team is not having a lot of success on the court. And it was a tough decision, but I think this was the best decision of letting go Nate McMillan.